Hi guys, and welcome to another portfolio and market update video. So what happened over the past 7 days on the market? Our fears came true and Genesis got the court approval to sell 1.6 billion of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin said I don't give a damn and jumped to 52k. My portfolio jumped with 10k. MicroStrategy, which is a publicly listed company that buys Bitcoin, is very close to listing on the S&P 500. We're going to cover all of this and much more. But before we get into the video, guys, please, for me, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that noti bell. Now let's get into the video. First up, we've got an article from the Wall Street Journal. It says that Genesis is cleared to sell Grayscale shares valued at 1.6 billion. If you've seen my previous video, you already know that 1.4 billion of that is in Bitcoin and the other 200 million is in Ethereum. Now, although I fear that this might cause a significant shock to the market, let me show you some stats that suggest why that isn't true. If we go over here on do.com, this shows some data regarding the Bitcoin ETFs. We can see that over the past week, we've experienced 2.38 billion inflows in the Bitcoin ETFs. And if we break this down, we can see that on the 12th, we had 593 million inflows. On the 13th, 545 million. On the 14th, 681 million inflows, and this is the highest amount of inflows that we've had so far. It's even higher than the very first day Bitcoin ETFs traded, and we received 610 million inflows. Then we continue with 323 inflows on the 15th and 237 on the 16th. Very good numbers, guys. We received 2.38 billion Bitcoin in 1 week. Now, of course, with such great news, Bitcoin just rallied up. So let's have a look at what it did. Here's the 12th. We started at 47k. It rallied up all the way to 50. Went down for a little dip and straight up all the way to well past 52k. Now let's have a look at what my portfolio did in that time. Okay, so I started the week at 84k on Monday. It actually went down to 80 on the 12th, then followed the Bitcoin path on the way up to 87k, went back down for a quick retracement to 83, and just rallied up for the rest of the week, going all the way up to 96k this Saturday. Since then, it's gone back down to 93k, which puts me at a profit of 13k since Monday, 5 days ago. And I haven't sold anything. My coins are exactly the same as last week's. The only thing that I've been doing is just market research. I've been researching into Casper, and I've got a very good video about Casper coming out next week. But let's look at what my investments have been doing. Now, my highest gainer percentage-wise over the past 7 days has been Actis with a gain of 78%, followed by Casper with 16%, ApeCoin with 14%, and Super. Now, the highest amount of profit I received was actually from Casper that jumped from 39k all the way to 45k, which is an increase of 6k in 7 days. Let's actually go into the Casper chart and have a look at how it performed over the past 7 days. We can see that over the whole week, pretty much till the end, it just went sideways until the 16th of February when it jumped from 14 cents all the way up to almost 17 cents, which is an increase of around 13%. My portfolio has been performing really well during these Bitcoin bumps. Okay, let's move on to the next article. This is an article from Cointelegraph and it states, Bitcoin bears, beware. BTC rally above 52k is much healthier than before. Now, what this article refers to is that this Bitcoin rally is not made up of leverage like previous ones, but from ETF inflows, which is suggested by the data that I showed you earlier. Bitcoin price continues to show strength even as traders refuse to use leverage for bullish positions. Check this out, guys. The 2.4 billion net inflow into spot Bitcoin ETFs in the past 7 days can be partially attributed to initial signs of a slowdown in the US economy, particularly in the consumer sector. US retail sales declined by 0.8 in January compared to the previous month. Okay, sure, retail sales declined by 0.8. However, you have to remember that the previous month was December, and that's when people were buying presents for Christmas. So I don't quite agree with this. Okay, sure, so retail sales did decline. However, the previous month was December, a month where everyone is buying Christmas presents. So, not so sure I can agree with this. But anyway, let's continue. Similarly, Japan and the United Kingdom entered technical recessions after experiencing 2 consecutive quarters of declining gross domestic product. Okay, this point actually pulls a lot more weight. And the reason why is because if we're in a recession, people will be spending a lot less money and they won't be investing in risk assets. In fact, they'll probably be taking investments out of risk assets. And that's probably why professional traders are not using leverage to buy into this Bitcoin rally. Traders are questioning whether institutional demand demand for Bitcoin will persist, considering the latest economic data is unfavorable for risk on markets. In times of uncertainty, investors often seek protection in fixed income assets. Okay, so this refers to the exact thing that I said earlier, that in times of uncertainty, people will take their money out of risk assets or asset-backed securities such as mortgage-backed bonds. This kind of suggests that the Bitcoin rally might be a little bit unstable. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Risk assets like Bitcoin are defying low Fed rate cut expectations. This is a very nice picture of Jeremy Powell. Guys, if you don't know who Jeremy Powell is, this is the chairman of the Federal Reserve in the United States. The US Consumer Price Index report for January showed prices went up for health and utilities driven by the tight labor market, while food, alcoholic beverages, apparel, I don't know why I can't pronounce this word, but apparel, I think, and household durables became cheaper due to consumers returning to normal purchasing behavior after the holidays. What this refers to is the CPI report for January, which came in higher than expected. We expected it to come in at 3.7 and it came in at 3.9. This means that inflation has ticked up, and this has removed all expectations of any rate cuts in May. The market now thinks that rate cuts will come in July. Now, rate cuts are really important for crypto, guys. This is the whole reason why Bitcoin exists, because government keeps printing money. Whenever they reduce the rates, they print more money, okay? What happens is money gets printed, people start investing in crypto and other risk assets as opposed to government bonds and index funds. However, in this case, the market thinks that rate cuts will be delayed till July, and therefore people are taking money out of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin fell from 50,000 to around 48,000 after the US Consumer Price Index figures saw traders push out the timing of the first rate cut to July. The dip, however, was short-lived, with prices leveling off at around 49,500 as the Asian business day began. So what's happening here is US market participants take their money out of Bitcoin, while Asian market participants put their money into Bitcoin. And the next data that I'm going to show you explains exactly why. Bitcoin to yen pair hits record high, reflects stress on Japan's fiat currency. You see, inflation in Japan is very, very high at the moment, and everyone that lives there as a hedge against inflation puts their money into Bitcoin. Because if you put, for example, yen into Bitcoin and inflation declines the value of the yen, Bitcoin will still keep its value against the yen. Therefore, over time, as the value of the yen declines, the same amount of Bitcoin will be valued at a much higher amount of yen. Let me show you this on the charts. So this is Bitcoin against the Japanese yen, and you can see that Bitcoin has already hit its all-time high against the yen. You can see that this week it actually went above it, and since then has retraced slightly below. And this is not just happening in Japan, guys. If we look at Bitcoin against the Turkish lira, we can see that Bitcoin went past its all-time high ages ago. And the reason why is because of inflation. Inflation in Turkey is extremely high. If there was no inflation in Turkey, Bitcoin's price should have been sat around here, around 557k. However, it's at 1,612,000. That's an increase of more than 3x. Insane amount of inflation. To give you a rough example, if X used to cost 3 Turkish liras in 2021, they now cost 10 Turkish liras. This is an insane amount of inflation. Now, I live in the UK and we're also experiencing inflation. Eggs have gone up, but they haven't gone up 3x. And I wouldn't expect eggs to cost £10. Alright guys, moving on to the next article. Gold funds see big outflows alongside rush of money into Bitcoin ETFs. Now, of course, this is not to say that people have been taking their money out of gold and putting them into Bitcoin. They might have been putting their money into fixed assets like government bonds and mortgage-backed securities. But what this means is that people are taking their money out of gold. And gold is the current hedge against inflation for the traditional market. Now, what this makes me think is that the market believes inflation is going to go down, we're not going to go into a recession, the Fed's going to start cutting rates, and people can start investing into risk assets. If this happens, we're going to be great. The bull market is going to come early. However, with the recent CPI reports, it's not looking good. Now, what Jeremy Powell has been saying is that he just wants the same data that he's been receiving. He doesn't want it better or worse. He just wants more of the same. And then he'll be able to cut rates and the market will be fine. Now, is January just a one-off? Maybe. We won't know until the next set of data comes in. But people taking money out of gold gives me a bit of a positive outlook on the market. Okay, what's next? MicroStrategy may soon enter the S&P 500. What that means for Bitcoin. Now guys, if you don't know about MicroStrategy, it's a publicly traded company that trades on the Nasdaq, and what it does is it buys Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes up in value. MicroStrategy issues new shares. People buy those shares. MicroStrategy receives an extra bit of income. It buys more Bitcoin. Bitcoin prices goes up, issues more shares, receives more funding, buys more Bitcoin. Bitcoin price goes up, and so on and so on and so on. It's basically a leveraged Bitcoin bet. And you can see this in the charts, guys. Whenever Bitcoin goes up, MicroStrategy goes up much more. And whenever Bitcoin goes down, MicroStrategy goes down much more. Okay, now let's get into the article. The popular index, which tracks the large cap US equity market across 500 companies, requires that its constituents carry a market cap of at least 15.8 billion. MicroStrategy, whose shares trade on the Nasdaq under the MSTR ticker, boasts 12.4 billion market cap, according to Yahoo Finance. Okay, so MicroStrategy is getting really close, but is it going to get listed on the S&P 500? It needs another increase of 25% market cap to hit this criteria. And we all know that 25% increase in Bitcoin's price is just another day in crypto. But is that the only criteria? Or maybe there are some others? MicroStrategy's inclusion in the index is far from guaranteed. Beyond market cap size, eligible companies for the S&P 500 must be domiciled in the United States, boast sufficient liquidity, and show net positive earnings over their previous 4 quarters, according to the index provider's website. Coinbase, the crypto exchange that trades on the Nasdaq as Coin, carries a 39 billion market cap but has struggled with profitability over the past 4 quarters and therefore has not made it into the S&P 500. So there are a few other criteria that MicroStrategy needs to hit before qualifying for the S&P 500. However, this doesn't stop us from speculating about what would happen if MicroStrategy entered the S&P 500. You see, guys, when you enter the S&P 500 as a company, what happens is you're given an allocation from the fund based on your market cap. Okay, this is very important because what happens with MicroStrategy is that every time they get funding, they buy more Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price goes up, they issue more shares, they get more funding, they buy more Bitcoin. If MicroStrategy enters the S&P 500, this will become a constant loop and there will be a massive amount of money entering Bitcoin and the crypto space. Right, enough speculating for one day. Let's move on to the next article. This one is about Coinbase. Now remember what we read about earlier, about Coinbase not being able to enter the S&P 500 because they weren't profitable consistently over the course of 4 quarters. Look at what's happening now, guys. Coinbase beats Q4 estimates as transaction revenue rises to 529 million. And if we look into the article, we can see that Coinbase also posted a net income of 273 million for the quarter, compared to a loss of 557 million in the same period last year. Remember, the only reason why Coinbase couldn't enter the S&P 500 in the first place was because of its earnings. Now that it's become profitable again, this leaves us to speculate that it might enter the S&P 500 in the future, which in my opinion could be the catalyst that drives us into the bull run. If you guys remember, in 2021, the catalyst that drove the whole bull run was Coinbase becoming a publicly listed company. You see, the timing coincides perfectly, because if Coinbase continues to be profitable throughout 2024, here comes January or February 2025, we'll receive the Q4 earnings from 2024, and if they're also profitable, Coinbase is now eligible to enter the S&P 500. And this will be huge news for the crypto market. Make a mental note of that one. Now moving on to some NFT news. Pudgy Penguins briefly flips Bored Ape Yacht Club in floor price. The cheapest available Pudgy Penguin NFT was higher than the cheapest available Bored Ape for a short while. This is the first time Pudgy Penguins have overtaken Bored Apes in floor price. Since November, the floor price for Pudgy Penguins have seen a strong rally and has grown from 5 ETH to their current value of around 21 ETH, up 320%. This is really good growth. At the same time, the floor price for Bored Apes have been declining since its peak in April 2022. It has fallen from an all-time high of around 160 ETH to its current value of around 22 ETH. Okay, this is a factor of 7. This is not good for the Bored Apes. Let's find out a little bit more. While Bored Apes have faced controversy, such as with regards to its branding, a class action lawsuit, and a recent event that left attendees with vision problems, Pudgy Penguins have been raising funds, selling toys in Walmart, and planning a game. The fall in floor price for the apes came despite yesterday's acquisition by Yuga Labs for rival non-fungible token creator Proof, which is best known for its Moonbirds collection. The acquisition seemed to surprise and confuse Bored Ape holders, who said the move literally makes no sense and described it as odd. Really odd. Okay, so it looks like Pudgy Penguins have been doing everything right and they are slowly becoming the winner in the NFT space. And Bored Apes seem to be taking the back seat. Okay, let's look at Pudgy Penguins' floor price right now. For those of you that don't know, this is OpenSea.io and this is an NFT marketplace where you can buy, sell or create NFTs. Right now I'm viewing Pudgy Penguins' collection and you can see that the price is still holding quite high. 22.4 ETH. And if you look at this NFT specifically, the last sale was at 0.85 ETH. This means that this holder bought this NFT for 0.85 ETH and they're now selling it for 22.4 ETH. This is a profit of more than 26x. That's incredible. And look at this one here. Last sale price was 0.18 ETH. Wow. Now, I'm not very into NFTs, but these are insane profits. 0.001 ETH for this one. And they're now selling it for 25 ETH. Okay, now we're going to look at some Bored Ape NFTs. And guys, if you are new on here, please make sure you click on the right link. You can either go onto their website or onto their Twitter page, but make sure you're clicking on the right link and make sure you look for this check mark, because what it means is that this collection belongs to a verified account and has significant interest or sales. Okay, so we've jumped onto the Bored Ape Yak collection and we can see that the floor price is actually just a little bit higher than the Pudgy Penguins one. Pudgy Penguins floor price sitting slightly above 22 ETH and Bored Ape sitting at 23. Okay guys, with this we're coming to the end of the video. If you like the information I provide to you, make sure you're subscribed and you follow me on Twitter at Alex Yanakov. Goodbye and see you in the next one.